I'm Mattia Mor. This is 10 Minutes to Inspire. We're here today at 10 Minutes to Inspire, a podcast by Emotion Network for Tech.Emotion. We are here with Jack Savoretti.
Thank you for having me.
Great singer, and it's a pleasure to have you here. So thank you so much for being here.
Great to be here, man. Amazing event, by the way.
I thank you for your approach and your words and on stage, and also for your time in this podcast. So I will start with this. Since this is a podcast that we use to inspire people through the story of the people, and you have like a wonderful career, great stories, and I mean there are definitely many things that you can tell us in much more than 10 minutes. But starting from this, what is the endeavor that best defines you in your life?
I think the endeavor professionally that defines me in my life is that I've made a lot of mistakes. I'm very good at making mistakes, but I don't mind. I sometimes think my greatest successes have been my failures. And I say that because that's the only thing that can really sort of stop you when you're setting out to do something against the odds, so to speak. Not just in music, in any walk of life. If you are going up against it, if you might not have access to what you're trying to do and you are trying to define the odds, the only thing that's truly going to stop you, it won't be a bad business partner, it won't be a bad reception, it won't be a critique. It'll be whether you can take that or not, whether you can deal with a bad partner, whether you can deal with a bad critique, whether you can deal with failure. And I think that's the one thing I see, especially in my world in music, those who are still going. I mean, I'm 41, I've done 9 albums, I've been doing this for over 20 years. The only reason I'm doing that is because I just don't, this isn't even like a conscious decision, but I really don't let failure get in the way. I really actually embrace it.
That's so important. It's so important also, I mean, when you talk to startups, when you talk to, mature business, when you talk about, sport or, songs. I mean, I know that you and we support Genoa team.
Well, there we go.
There are so many failures and difficulties in our, fans.
That's the best part. That's the best part. I took my son to see his first Genoa game, and it was where we were in Serie B, and we got promoted to Serie A. Now that for a Genoa fan is just as good as a Real Madrid fan watching them win the Champions League.
Just to be there and do that. Yeah, no, we did a movie called Genoa Whatever and Wherever because of that. Because I mean, no matter if we lose or we win, I mean,
you're still Genoano.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's genuinely, maybe I learned that from being a Genoano, but that's definitely been my philosophy in life.
So, and in a podcast that talking about inspiration, who or what has been your source of inspiration?
As a man, it's my children. Every day, being a father is the hardest, greatest thing I've ever done. It's so difficult because it's not difficult because it's difficult to be a father. It's difficult because it's so difficult to care so much about something in the sense that the difficulty comes from the fact that it's just overwhelming and you can't allow it to overwhelm you. So that's the hard part. It's not the children, it's not the obligations, it's not the responsibility, it's not the stress, it's not the sleepless nights. It's the fact that you love something so much. That's, as a man, I would say, is my greatest inspiration. As a musician, I've reevaluated that over the last 6 years. We spoke about this a little bit on stage. I used to think that life inspired me. I used to look at songwriting like a journalist. I wanted to just observe and then report back what I saw. And I would write songs about stuff that I saw on the news, stuff that I saw happen to my friends or my family. And then it was only during lockdown where the one thing that I didn't really ever, I don't want to say I didn't value it, but I definitely took it for granted, was the public, was an audience. And when that was taken away from me, that really changed my whole perspective on how much that is my inspiration. Connecting with a group of people, walking into a room of strangers and leaving as friends, that's a miracle. Not just in music, in life, but when you can do that every night, thanks to music, I've become very grateful of that.
Even more than any event we can create, I can imagine how it could be powerful for you and inspirational for you. And in Tech.Emotion Summit, we talk about the power of the ecosystem. So how ecosystems are important, to face the challenges in life. How do you think you can have a good impact on society in your ecosystem?
I think it's lead by example is what I've always tried. And I make mistakes. I get it wrong. I'm definitely not perfect on my actions, on my morals. You win some, you lose some. That's life. It's trial and error. But the one ecosystem that I've really dedicated a lot of time to, because my family, the ecosystem of family has kind of been gifted to me thanks to love, thanks to the love between me and my wife. Family was gifted. But my professional, my life, my friends, my colleagues, those were choices. Those were real choices. And I'm very proud of the choices I made, because I chose a lot of people that sometimes weren't being chosen. And a lot of people chose me when I wasn't being chosen. And there's been this reciprocal sort of, I don't want to use trust because I don't like that word, respect and belief that when we are together, we're a little bit stronger than when we're not. And so I'm a big believer in creating ecosystems, or as Luca calls them, ecosystems of emotions, because I do really believe that that is another, we talked about tribulations and surviving in any industry or in life in general. And I think the community you create around you, the ecosystem you create around you of people that challenge you, don't criticize, but challenge you. That's what keeps you getting better.
And growing and getting also more satisfactions at the end.
100%.
And in this, what has been the lesson, the most important lesson that you learned in your life?
The most important lesson I've learned in my life is that fundamentally the only thing that I truly have control of is my choice of how to deal with wherever I am. I can't control my environment, but I can control very much how I choose to deal with that environment. And that's a very stoic sort of what you call it, philosophy that's come back a lot, and people are sort of, I know I'm regurgitating what a lot of people say, especially on podcasts, but it's true. I lost my father 4 years ago, and I remember sitting by his side while he passed away, and I realized that I had kind of created this character. He was having his experience alone, and I was having my experience alone, and we sort of create each other. And I had chosen to be sat by his side. I had chosen to spend as much time with him as possible within my life. I had chosen to forgive maybe what he got wrong. And the same with him. We were basically, in that moment, I realized that what was keeping us together wasn't just the innate love and the blood attachment. It was we chose to spend our lives trying to be closer together, trying to spend time together, trying to be better for the other one. And that's when we became father and son. It wasn't when he picked me up in the hospital and just had a little baby. That was different. But we became father and son when we chose to be father and son. And now, since then, I've realized the power of choice. And that's something I don't take for granted anymore.
No, I mean, it's a big lesson that you have to, learn and to know more for every day, also
for every generation as well.
Exactly.
It's something that you have to sort of show your kids without force.
It's not easy.
It's not easy. No, because you don't want to sort of preach. I don't want to preach to them. Your choices matter. Because then you get then they become anxious, stressed out. They have enough anxiety as it is. The last thing they need is a parent saying your choices really matter. But I do always say to my kids, remember that when you walk into a room, you have the choice of what you see and how you are seen. Like, pay attention to that.
So, Jack, if you meet your younger self, which advice would you give yourself?
I'm going to get preachy, and I'm going to quote some Stoic philosophy from Marcus Aurelius again, now that we're in the Stoic realm. And remember that you have the freedom not to have an opinion. And I definitely wish that I'd been less opinionated when I was younger, and had spent less time forcing my opinions on people, and had spent more time listening. I think that could have served me well. I definitely noticed that in people younger than me now that I'm older, and I'm sure people looked at me that way when they were older and wiser, listening to some young opinionated kid in his 20s. I wish people did realize that sometimes they do have the freedom to not have an opinion. There's a lot to be said for that. And I haven't gotten there fully yet. I still fall into my own trap.
It's a process to learn.
It's a process. I'm still highly over-opinionated, but I'm learning to listen more.
So, and going into the end of the podcast, what gets you out of bed in the morning?
My wife. There's not an option. My wife, my kids. Actually, that's not true. The real thing that gets me out of my bed in the morning is my beautiful border collie Jazz. Just puts her cold nose. I know you're asking for a more meaningful answer.
No, it's fine.
But there is meaning in this, because this dog saved my life. It was at a very difficult time, and this dog just quite literally ran into my life, and was a very complicated dog, a very abandoned dog. And at the time, I think I felt very much the same. I felt like I discovered that maybe I'm more complicated than I think. Maybe I have a sense of abandonment as well. Maybe I haven't dealt with all these things. And I remember seeing this dog and meeting this dog and thinking, why don't we figure this out together? And it was very much a romance that has kept me going and gotten me out of bed over the last few years when it's been really hard to get out of bed. She has always put that cold nose next to mine. And thanks to that, we've both, I think, dealt with our complexities and our senses of abandonment a lot better together.
No, nice. And talking about your talent, what is your talent?
Failing. No, I mean it.
You said at the beginning, yeah.
But I really do think that is a talent that people shouldn't underestimate. The process does matter. There's a great interview with Bob Dylan where Bob Dylan says, I don't know why you guys give so much importance to words. They're not that important. And the journalists are all very confused. He goes, for example, if I say the word house, you picture a different house than I'm picturing. Yeah. So what's so important about words? And the journalist says, well, if you give no importance to words, then why do you spend your life writing poetry? And he says, because I've got nothing better to do. And that to me is perfect. Being able to accept that the process is all that matters.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter why you do it. You just do it. Yeah. And you fail at it, you win at it, but that's the gift of life.
That's a nice example. And getting to the end, Emotion Network talks a lot about emotions. It gives a lot of importance to emotions. So which is the emotion that drives your life?
Nostalgia, probably. I mean, I think nostalgia, would you call that an emotion?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm very, and again, something I'm learning to do with. I think the reason not people, but I have been nostalgic is because even though there is a sense of sadness to nostalgia, you get to rewrite the past with nostalgia. You get to make it how you wish it was. And maybe it wasn't exactly like that, but when you reminisce, when you romanticize about the past, it's a sense of control. That you make it better than it actually was, or more beautiful, or more loving, or more nurturing than it was. And maybe sometimes it's a little not real. Yeah. There's a bit of BS involved in nostalgia. But I love the beauty of narrative. I love the fact that I can control narrative, so that's probably why I'm nostalgic. But I am learning to be more present, to try and like focus on, rather than valuing the past, to really value the here and now.
So thank you so much, Jack, for your time and your inspiration here in Tech.Emotion 10 Minutes to Inspire, a podcast by Emotion Network. We're really happy to have you here today. So thanks so much. Grazie.
Thank you, buddy. I hope we've inspired somebody somewhere out there.
At least one. At least one is
That'll
enough.
Do. That'll
enough. Grazie.